Lopez family moved into a new house just before Christmas. It was an old but beautiful house decorated with Christmas lights that flickered hypnotically. At first, they thought it was part of the decoration. Each night, the lights flickered with a particular rhythm, but soon they realized that the flickering formed letters. "Look, Dad, the house is talking," said Kevin, the youngest son, as he pointed at the wall. The lights formed the phrase, "You will not leave." The mother thought it was a coincidence, but that night the lights flickered again, forming an even more chilling message, "He is coming." The following days were worse. The lights flickered faster and nighttime noises became clearer. Footsteps banging on the walls and the sound of something dragging across the ceiling. The mother began to notice that the mirrors in the house reflected shadows that didn't belong to any of them. The father, meanwhile, researched the house's history and discovered that the previous owner had disappeared on Christmas, leaving no trace. On December 24th, the house went completely dark. All the lights went out and only the sound of heavy breathing echoed from the living room. When the mother turned on a flashlight, she saw a tall, slender figure at the end of the hallway. She blinked and the figure was already closer. The parents tried to open the front door, but it was jammed. The windows wouldn't budge either. The flashlight's beam flickered intermittently. Each time the light came back on, the figure in the hallway was closer. The mother screamed and the father ran to the kitchen to grab a knife. The sound of footsteps now came from all directions. Thumping from the walls, the ceiling, and the floor made Kevin cover his ears. "Make it stop, please," the boy cried as he curled up next to the Christmas tree. The flashlight's beam lit up once more, and the figure was now in front of the mother. It was tall, with unnaturally long limbs and a grotesque smile that stretched from ear to ear. Its eyes, completely black, glowed with a reddish light. The mother stepped back slowly while the figure followed her with slow, deliberate movements. The father returned with a knife, but before he could do anything, the figure vanished. The house fell silent. Only the family's breathing could be heard. Then the Christmas lights turned back on, flickering in a rapid, irregular pattern. The flickering formed a new phrase, "He is now with us." Kevin started crying. The mother hugged him, and the father tried to calm them down. Suddenly, the lights flickered again and went out all at once. Darkness engulfed them, and in the stillness, the sound of slow, heavy footsteps became more pronounced. The father, clutching the knife, took a deep breath and prepared to face whatever was stalking them. The mother whispered, "Stay with us, Kevin, don't move." The sound of footsteps stopped. An absolute silence filled the house. No one dared to move. The mother tried to turn on the flashlight, but it no longer worked. Then, from the Christmas tree, one of the red lights flickered 3 times. Then a blue one, then a green one. The rhythm was different this time. The lights flickered in unison, forming the final message, "One more." The father ran to the front door, pounding on it with all his strength. "Get away from us," he shouted desperately. The door didn't budge. Behind him, the mother felt a cold hand touch her shoulder. She turned around quickly, but no one was there. The lights flickered one more time and then went out completely. Everything fell into complete silence. The next morning, the police arrived at the house. The door was open. The house was empty. There was no trace of the Lopez family. Neighbors said they saw the Christmas lights turning on and off all night, but no one heard a single sound. An officer searched the house and found an old camera in the attic. When the photos were developed, images of the Lopez family appeared. But in each one of them, a tall, dark shadow could be seen in the background, getting closer in every photo. The last photo showed the family in front of the Christmas tree smiling, but in the corner, the tall, slender figure was there with a grotesque smile and its face just inches from the camera. Since that day, the house remains empty. But every Christmas, the lights turn on by themselves, flickering with a hypnotic rhythm that, if you pay close attention, seems to spell out, "Come play." The following year, on Christmas Eve, the house once again became the center of attention. Neighbors reported seeing lights flashing rapidly through the windows. Some claimed to hear faint laughter, the kind of giggling you'd expect from a child, but distorted, broken like a scratched record. No one dared to approach. Inside the house, the air was cold as ice. The Christmas tree stood in the living room, decorated just as it had been the year before, but this time there was something new. A single present lay under the tree, wrapped in shimmering red paper with a black ribbon, the tag read, "For the next family." As midnight struck, the tree lights flickered again. The reflection of a shadow could be seen in the large window at the front of the house. It moved slowly, pausing as if looking directly at anyone who might be watching. The flickering light spelled out one final message: "We're not alone." Suddenly, the front door creaked open. The house was ready to welcome its next guests. A few weeks after Christmas, a moving truck arrived in front of the house. The Rivera family had purchased the house at a suspiciously low price. They were unaware of its past. Bear Rivera, his wife Lavra, and their teenage daughter Sophia entered with smiles, excited about their fresh start. "This place is perfect," said Lavra as she looked around. "It just needs a little cleaning." Sophia rolled her eyes. "It smells weird in here, like something old and damp." "That's just the old wood, honey," Javier said. "It gives it character." That night, as the family settled in, Sophia noticed the Christmas tree still standing in the living room. "Why did they leave the tree?" she asked. "Like they couldn't be bothered to take it down," Lavra replied. "We'll get rid of it tomorrow." At 3 a.m., Sophia woke up to a faint tapping on her window. Half asleep, she ignored it, thinking it was the wind. But then she heard it again, 3 taps, followed by silence, then 3 more taps. Her heart pounded as she slowly approached the window. She pulled back the curtain and saw nothing but darkness. As she turned away, she caught sight of a reflection in her closet mirror, an outline of a tall figure with a crooked smile staring at her. She spun around, but nothing was there. The Christmas lights on the tree flickered once, then twice, then rapidly. Her phone buzzed on her nightstand. A message from an unknown number read, "Don't hide." Sophia's breathing became shallow. Her fingers trembled as she grabbed her phone, attempting to call her parents. But before she could dial, the tapping returned, this time louder and closer. It wasn't coming from the window, it was coming from inside her closet. She backed away, heart racing, and the closet door creaked open slowly. A raspy voice whispered from the darkness, "I see you." Her scream echoed throughout the house. Moments later, the lights on the Christmas tree flickered wildly. The distorted laughter returned, echoing from the walls, growing louder and louder. The closet door slammed shut with a deafening bang. Sophia's phone buzzed one final time. The message on the screen read, "Welcome home." The following morning, the house stood quiet once more. The neighbors noticed the Rivera's car still parked in the driveway, but none of them answered their door. That night, the Christmas lights flickered on by themselves, brighter than ever. They pulsed with a new rhythm, spelling out a single ominous message, "Still hungry." Sophia screamed, stumbling back onto her bed. Her phone slipped from her hand, landing face down on the floor. That tapping intensified, turning into sharp knocks. Her eyes locked on the slowly widening crack of the closet door. Heavy breathing echoed from within. "Mom, Dad, help." Sophia's voice was hoarse from panic. Suddenly, the lights on the Christmas tree flickered wildly. Each flash cast long, crooked shadows across her room. One shadow, however, did not disappear when the lights went dark. It lingered by the closet door, tall and twisted, its smile glowing faintly in the dark. Sophia's screams jolted her parents awake. Javier and Lavra rushed into her room, only to freeze at the doorway. The closet door stood ajar, dark mist curling out from within, and the tall shadow with its grotesque smile turned its head toward them, its glowing eyes locked onto Sophia. "Stay back," Javier shouted, grabbing a nearby chair and holding it defensively. But the shadowy figure didn't move. Instead, the Christmas lights in the house began to flicker violently, creating a dizzying strobe effect. The walls groaned, and the distorted laughter from earlier filled the air, growing louder and more chaotic. "Take her and go," Lavra yelled at Javier, her voice cracking with terror. She rushed to the Christmas tree, grabbing the largest ornament, a heavy snow globe-like decoration, and hurled it at the shadow. It shattered midair, the shards disappearing into the mist. The figure seemed unfazed. Instead, it extended one clawed hand toward Sophia. She whimpered, backing against the wall. "Please, don't take me," she sobbed. Javier lunged forward, pulling Sophia into his arms. He ran out of the room, Lavra following closely behind. As they reached the staircase, the house began to shift. The walls stretched and warped, the hallway elongating endlessly. The front door seemed miles away. "We need to leave," Lavra cried. "The door, we have to break it down," Javier shouted, gripping Sophia tightly as they sprinted toward the distorted front door. Behind them, the shadow glided down the hallway, its claws scraping against the walls, leaving deep gashes. When they reached the door, Javier slammed his shoulder into it repeatedly, but it didn't budge. The house seemed alive, its walls vibrating with a low, guttural hum. From behind, a voice whispered, low and chilling, "You can't leave." Lavra turned to face the figure. "Why us? What do you want?" she screamed. The shadow tilted its head, the faint outline of a grin spreading wider. It raised its hand and pointed to the Christmas tree, now glowing ominously in the living room. The lights flickered rapidly, spelling out a single word, "Trade." "What does it mean?" Lavra gasped. "It wants one of us," Javier muttered, his voice hollow. He looked at Sophia, who clung to him, her face buried in his chest. "No, we're not giving anyone," Lavra snapped, stepping in front of her family. "You can't have her. You can't have any of us." The figure hissed, its misty form expanding, filling the room with darkness. The lights of the Christmas tree pulsed brighter, and the shadow lunged forward. Javier instinctively pushed Sophia behind him, holding up a decorative iron candle holder as a makeshift weapon. It passed through the shadow harmlessly, and the figure let out a bone-chilling laugh. The Christmas lights flickered again. "Choose." Laura's eyes darted to Sophia, then to Javier. "No," she screamed, "you can't have her." Suddenly, Sophia stepped forward. Her hands trembled, but her voice was steady. "Take me," she said, her eyes brimming with tears. "If I go, will you leave my family alone?" "Sophia, no," Lavra cried, grabbing her arm. The shadow froze, its glowing eyes narrowing as if considering the offer. The Christmas lights blinked erratically before spelling a new message, "Promise." "Yes, I promise," Sophia sobbed. "Just don't hurt them." The shadow moved closer, towering over her. It raised one long, clawed hand and pointed toward the Christmas tree. Mist around the room thickened, swirling violently. The ornaments shattered one by one, and the glowing lights dimmed until only the faint red glow of the figure's eyes remained. "No," Javier roared, lunging forward. But before he could reach her, the shadow enveloped Sophia, pulling her into its misty form. Her screams echoed for a moment before being swallowed by silence. The house went still. Javier and Lavra collapsed to the floor, sobbing. The Christmas lights flickered one last time, spilling out "thank you." Then they went dark. The Riveras left the house the next morning, unable to bear its oppressive silence. Javier and Lavra told the neighbors they were moving, but they gave no explanation. They didn't take any belongings, leaving everything behind, including the ominous Christmas tree. For years, the house remained vacant, its windows dark and its walls silent. But every Christmas Eve, the neighbors noticed a faint glow from the living room. Those brave enough to approach swore they heard soft laughter and saw the flickering Christmas lights. If you stood close enough, you could see a small figure standing by the window, a young girl, her face frozen in an eerie, serene smile, watching and waiting for the next family to arrive.